This is video 12 and it's just a review of your basic integration rules. What I suggest you do is that you go through them first and see which ones you remember and then check them with this video. Okay, so I would pause the video and try it first and then see if you can go back and do it. So the first one, the integral of k times f of u du, is kind of backtracking to our previous video about properties of integrals. It's just saying that if you have a constant with your integral, you can pull that constant in front. So this is equal to k times the integral of f of u du. Just a property, really. And same thing on the next one. This property is saying that the integral holds over addition or subtraction. So I could break this up, like for example, if it was a polynomial, and say f of u du plus or minus, whichever one it is, the integral of g of u du. Another integral property that's really helpful is if it's just the integral of du, think of it in terms of like the integral of 1. Well, what came before 1? Had to be x or u, this is with respect to u, so this is going to be just u. Whereas the integral of u to the n du is going to be, okay, your basic power rule. So when I take the derivative, I bring down the n, and then I subtract 1 from the top. So now I'm going to add 1 on the top, and then divide by the number I put up there. So add 1 to the exponent, and then divide by that exponent. The integral of du over u, or really 1 over u du, that comes from the natural log of u plus c. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot all my plus c's. And then the integral of a to the u, that's going to be a to the u over ln of a plus c, of course. Now I'm going to remember them. And then the integral of e to the u is just e to the u, because the derivative of e to the u is e to the u, plus c. Okay, so those were like the basic ones that we learned. Some trig functions and their integrals. So with sine and cosine, remember the trick for sine and cosine is just because we do use it so often and it's so easy to mess them up. I write down sine, cosine, negative cosine. And this way, if I'm going this way down, that's my derivatives. And if I'm going backwards, that's my integrals. Okay, so if I have the integral of sine, I'm going back, and that's going to be negative cosine of u plus c. If I have the integral of cosine, well then I'm at cosine and I'm going back, so that's going to be sine of u plus c. This is really helpful because this sine and cosine is obviously the most common, and it will definitely come up a lot. So the integral of secant squared u, if you know your trig derivatives really well, this will be a breeze because the derivative of tan is secant squared. So integral of secant squared u is just tan of u plus c. The integral of cosecant squared u, well again, remember that the derivative of cotan is negative cosecant squared. So if I'm going to take the integral of positive cosecant squared u, then I'm going to get negative cotan of u plus c. The integral of secant u tan u, well, remember the derivative of secant is secant tan. So the integral of secant u tan u du is going to be that secant of u plus c. And the integral of cosecant cotan with respect to u is going to be the negative cosecant of u plus c. Okay, so if you know your derivatives really well, that will be very, very helpful in remembering your integrals for trig. Some inverse trig functions, there was only 2 that you had to remember. One was arcsine, one was arctan. So remember, arcsine, sine starts with s, the square root starts with s, subtract starts with s. So if you can find that 1 over square root of 1 minus u squared form with respect to u, you know that that's going to be arcsine of u plus c. Another way to write that is sine inverse of u plus c. And then tan, that's the t, so that's the plus sign. If you can find the form, the integral of 1 over 1 plus u squared, then you know that's going to be arctan of u plus c, or in other words, tan inverse of u plus c. Those are the only two you have to really know. And then two things that are like helpful to know, but only come up, rarely, but they do happen, is the integral of tan of u is the natural log of secant x, c or secant u, plus c. And the integral of cotan is the natural log of sine of u plus c. Okay, they could come up, so it's good to know them. Just memorize them. And that's all the integration rules that you need to absolutely know, 100% forwards and backwards. Know them cold.